Thank you. Well, again, good afternoon. My name is Carla Johnson. I'm with the Region 11 Education Service Center, and I'm the Regional Secondary Transition Specialist at the Service Center. And welcome to our new folks that are jumping in for this tidbit of self-determination. Today's topic is relatedness, and it is being recorded and will also be placed on the Regional Transition website for you to access at a later time. Let's see here. I don't think I'm in presentation mode. Sorry about that, guys. It's important for me to mention that this particular session, all sessions related that you guys have been attending this spring have generously been sponsored by Texas Workforce Commission, and it is a part of their Charting the Course initiative. Resources for today can be found at the I'm Determined website. I will be dropping that link into the chat as Dr. McNaught and his youth leaders get started, but then also drop the link for the regional website so that you guys can see where those recordings and other tools and resources from previous sessions are housed. So for my educators that are in attendance today, it'll be really important, and I'll drop this link in as well. It'll be very important for you to complete this information. I don't need any student names. I just need a count of how many students that you have with you today that are participating. So I'll be putting that in a little while as well. And then just to remind you that our next sessions with Dr. McNaught and his youth leaders will be on May the 4th, same time, 2 p.m. And then we're gonna have a wonderful showcase and discussion that's scheduled for June the 1st, same time, 2 p.m. And last but not least, this is for everybody who's here. Teachers, if you can help your students that are participating to complete the survey, we certainly value their opinion. It'll take you guys all of 15 to 30 seconds to complete the survey. We just kind of want to know what your thoughts are so that we can know how to do planning for the 2021-2022 school year. And so without further ado, John, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you and the youth leaders get started.
All right, I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, welcome everybody. This is our third in a series, and we're going to be talking about relatedness specifically today. For those of you that have been with us, we have Chloe, Jonathan, and Dylan all with us, who've been with us throughout. And then chat had a last minute work mix up. And so I invited two of our alumni youth leaders who are now both working in the field of special education. So I have Annie and Emily with us as well. And they've both been with me to Texas back when we were allowed to fly to Texas face to face. So they're alumni in that sense also. So just a quick kind of introduction reminder of where we are and where we're going. And so when we talk about self-determination, we talk about skills, abilities, and beliefs, right? And we have to have this foundational element in place. And so how do we do that? We look at choice making, decision making, which we've talked about through the one pager and the Good Day Plan. We look at problem solving, which that will be the topic in May. All right, and we look at some abilities. What is the next level of being determined? And that's things like goal setting and attainment, which will be the focus today. Self-regulation, which we talked about last month with the Good Day Plan. Self-advocacy, which we talked about back in February with the one pager. And then lastly, you know, the top of the pyramid, the top of the mountain with self-determination is when we start having these beliefs about ourselves, right? So internal locus of control, the feeling that we have control over what happens to us. And we talked about that with the Good Day Plan last month. And then self-efficacy and self-awareness, which we'll talk about along with goal setting this month. Now, self-efficacy just means that you believe you have the skills to succeed in a specific situation, right? And we talked about that a little bit with the Good Day Plan as well. So you see how these kind of overlap a little bit. And then self-awareness, right? Just an overall understanding of, your strengths, your abilities, and your needs. And this we also touched on with the one pager. So you'll see how these are all kind of intertwined, right? As we go along. The important thing to remember is that the skills are foundational, which lead to abilities, which then lead to beliefs. So over the past 3 sessions, we've talked about autonomy, right? So that's that feeling of being in control of your own decisions, competence, feeling like you have the skills needed to succeed in whatever situation you're placed in, and then relatedness, which we're going to talk about today. And so just a reminder of the big picture, right? So we've got our skills, abilities, and beliefs, all those little elements that make up I'm Determined that are infused in the tools, right? And then when we look at those and work on those through an environment that focuses on autonomy, competence, and relatedness, that's what's going to lead to our success. So both teachers and students, right? You can work on choice making, you can work on self-advocacy, you can work on self-awareness, and it will be helpful, right? But if you don't learn to practice those skills in an environment where autonomy, competence, and relatedness is present and supported, right? Those skills aren't going to generalize outside of the classroom when you're working on them. Okay. And so it's really important that we look at this through a big picture, right? And we're putting all the different puzzle pieces in place so that at the end of the day, we can be determined. We know the skills, we have the skills, we practice them in different environments, right? So when something comes up and we're in a new situation, we can rely on those skills and be successful. So what is relatedness? What does that mean? So it's really quite simple, right? It's just this sense of belonging. So you feel that you're a part of something. And it's interesting with relatedness, right? And so the sense of belonging. And I always get asked, well, how many people does it take to, make me feel like I'm part of the group, right? Or make me feel like I belong, right? And so there's been a ton of research. And when you're talking about, like, let's say at the high school level, right? It only takes one other person, whether it's a peer or an adult, connecting with a kid, right? To make that person feel like they belong. It just takes one person. Think about that for a minute. Think about how powerful that is, right? You could be that one person for somebody, okay? You don't have to join a team. You can, but you don't have to, right? You need to connect with one person. And so, as I've worked on this project, and as you'll hear from the youth leaders, that one person can be anybody. It can be someone your age. It can be a peer with a disability, a peer without a disability. It could be a bus driver, a custodian, a cafeteria worker. It could be a sibling. There's no magic formula to who that person is, but everybody needs somebody, right, in their corner. And so we talked about what elements are we going to look at, right? So certainly goal setting, and we'll show you in a second a quick video on the goal setting tool. Self-awareness and self-efficacy, which I touched on earlier. And so how do we do this? And this is where our youth leaders will come in, but something to think about, right? So inclusive practices, right? What does your education plan look like? And I think I read on social media, Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read that Texas is getting rid of the ARD terminology and moving back to IEP. But either way.
I have not heard that. That may be a rumor on social media.
Okay, we'll have to keep following it.
Okay.
So inclusive practices, right? Where are you being educated, right? Are you in a self-contained environment only with other kids with disabilities? Are you in classrooms that are inclusive, that have kids with and without disabilities? And what does that look like and how often, right? Inclusive opportunities. What's going on in school? What are the opportunities out there that are available to everyone that you can be a part of? Okay. Also, what's going on out in the community that you can be a part of, right? Whether it's through a church group or a community organization or a community sports team, whatever, right? But be looking for those inclusive opportunities. So, because look, if we really want to be successful at the end of the day, right? And we want to get a job, whether we go to college or not, right? The ultimate goal at the end of the day is to be employed, right? And be making money so you can live as independently as you want to live, right? So in order to do that, right, you've got to meet people out in the community where you want to live, because that's how you get hired. It's called networking. It's a fancy word, right? It just means networking, okay? And that's how it happens. And so you got to be looking for those inclusive opportunities inside and outside of school, right? So you can get there. The other piece we'll talk about is disability awareness. Now this is like two phases. One is you as the individual with the disability need to understand your own disability, right? So you can articulate and tell people what your strengths are and how they can help you if you need help. Also, you need to educate your non-disabled peers and adults on what your specific disability looks like, right? What your strengths are, right? And what areas you need help in, right? So that they can understand, okay? It's a two-way street, all right? And how do we do this? Well, the one pager we talked about already, right? And so the one pager definitely helps with disability awareness, because the whole point of the one pager is helping you communicate your strengths, your preference, your interests, your needs. There's also the goal plan, which I'll talk about in 1 second. And the cool thing about the goal plan is, yeah, you identify a goal and that's great. But the other thing is you also then can network or meet other people with similar interests and similar goals, right? To help you get to where you want to go, okay? So let's look at a quick, like 2-minute video on what this goal plan actually is.
Setting and attaining goals is a big part of living a self-determined life. To help you learn to do this well, we have a tool we call the goal plan. The goal plan helps you identify a goal, visualize what steps you need to take in order to reach that goal, think about who can help along the way, and pinpoint what outcomes might result when you reach your goal. Goals could be anything, big or small, like getting an A in math, to graduating from high school, to doing your homework every night for a week straight. Sometimes goals seem really difficult or impossible to achieve, but just about every goal can be attained as long as you break it into small, manageable steps. For this example, we'll use the homework goal, doing it every night for a week. In order to reach that goal, let's break it down into those manageable steps. First, we'll want to make sure we write the homework assignment down in the correct spot each day. Next, let's help ourselves by setting a consistent time that we'll do our homework each day, immediately after we get home from school. Finally, we'll make sure that as soon as we finish the assignment, we put it into our backpack so we don't forget it at home. This next section of the goal plan helps you think about who can help you, because it's always okay to ask for help when you need it. For our example, we're going to list that our teacher can help us by making sure we write down the correct assignment. And we'll also list that our parents can help us by keeping us on task at home. Finally, the goal plan can help you visualize the positive outcomes that might happen after you achieve your goal. In our example, we'll say this could help us get on the honor roll. Our teacher and parents will be proud of us, and I'll feel more. Setting and attaining goals is a big part of living a self-determined life. By downloading it from our website and printing it out or online using our web app. We hope you have fun filling out the goal plan and find it useful on your journey to becoming self-determined.
That's what happens when you multitask. It's hitting wrong buttons. Okay, so before we get to the youth leaders piece, right? Let's talk about some final thoughts. So relatedness, sense of belonging, right? How do we get there? So we talked about looking for those opportunities outside of school. Not everything has to happen within those walls of the school. And you know, one example we'll talk about that Dylan will talk about is his experience with the Boy Scouts. Okay. The other thought is awareness of your strengths and your goals, right? You got to know what you're good at. You got to set goals, but then you can actually meet people who can support you, right? By knowing what your goals are. And then understanding that your disability doesn't need to define you, right? You don't need to look for specific groups that are disability specific only, right? Push yourself to look for inclusive opportunities. And so, right, at home, what can that look like? Joining a community group based on one of your interests. If you're working, participating in some kind of after work social gathering. And in school, what can that look like? Joining some kind of school club or team, right? The opportunities are endless. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. And I'm going to start with the first question, and then I'm going to kind of, I'll call on you individually and as we make our way through it. So what I want the youth leaders to think about for a second is think about your early school experience. So let's think elementary school. And so when you're thinking back, what did inclusion look like for you? Do you remember being included with your non-disabled peers? Were you excluded ever? Do you feel like you spent most of your time with other students with disabilities, or were you mostly with general ed students in an inclusive classroom? So let's start with that, and I'll let Jonathan start us off.
Thanks, John. So for me, I was mostly excluded in elementary school. I was pulled out for self-contained math. And so while all my other friends would go to the traditional math teacher, I would have to go to the sped room and learn math. So it really made me try and figure out what was going on with myself personally, because I was being separated from my peers. And then eventually when I found out, as hard as it was to tell my friends, I had to make the choice, do I want to tell them or do I want to come up with a lie or something like that so I don't get bullied or teased or anything like that? So I had to put on a brave face and just tell them why I was going, just say I learned differently. Some of them were accepting and some of them were not. So I think just depending upon where you are depends on the environment that you get.
Okay, Emily, how about you?
So actually starting off in preschool, I was in a totally self-contained environment. There was only students with disabilities. And then moving along, I always was in classes with students without disabilities, but I was often pulled out, or I had an aide or a teacher that would come and help me. So I was often identified as that kid that was different. So I early on was okay with identifying myself as a person with a disability because kids ask questions and I had to.
All right, how about Chloe, and then we'll go to Annie and Dylan.
I was always in classes with both people with and without disabilities. I guess like a job applicant who out for English mostly. But there was a group of us that would always go together, and so I didn't feel
How about Annie?
So, similar to Chloe, English was not my strong suit. So I was pulled out for English, and reading was, I struggled the most with. So then I was also pulled out for like history because there's a lot of reading, and science sometimes. But math was my strong suit. So I was always, I'd stay in the classroom for math. When I was pulled out, I would join one other girl who was a year older than me. So I thought I was kind of cool because I was going to like a special room with, like an older student. But then once I became like the oldest student, when I was in 5th grade, I realized that it was not like the cool thing to do. And so I kind of became ashamed of it a little bit. And that's when I kind of started talking with my parents and like asking why I had to go to those rooms and like why I couldn't just stay. Like I stayed for math. Why couldn't I stay for every other class, every other like subject? And so that's when I kind of started talking not only with my parents, but also with my teacher about the kinds of things that we were working on individually versus like what they were doing in the classroom.
How did getting pulled out that much affect like your relationships with friends, if at all?
Up until 5th grade, like people would ask me and I would always say, well, like I'm going with a 5th grader or with an older student, to go work. So I felt cool, and I feel like other students didn't really understand either. So they thought it was cool. But then once I was in 5th grade and I was the oldest student, and I was going with another 3rd grader, it definitely, people started asking questions. And that's when I started playing I don't feel so good, being like, oh, well, I'm going to the nurse and not the class. So yeah, did not go well in 5th grade.
Okay, Dylan, how about you? How was, thinking of elementary school, what did that look like for you as opposed to a relationship to inclusion and
So is this working, by the way?
yes, sound great.
All right. And then through the power of magic, I'm no longer a poltergeist. I have a camera. So ta-da!
All right.
Yeah. So pretty much back in ye olde days when time was different and people were afraid of disabilities. Yeah, that's right. People were afraid of you sneezing. Achoo! You have polio. What? Pretty much, I wasn't really that included because I had autism. I was more feared than the bubonic plague. People would stay away from me like, ew, it's Dylan, he has autism, gross, run away! Pretty much, that doesn't mean that I wasn't included. I had friends that were also autistic that were in similar circumstances. Pretty much, they're my best friends still. We've been friends since we were 3. Yeah, pretty much we didn't care. That pretty much the point I'm trying to get at is that even though I had autism, even though the school completely rejected me, and at one point a teacher almost made me completely fail. Yeah, that's a story for another day. Pretty much, I was still included by friends who were in the same spot as me.
Sorry. Dylan, how about sticking with that, Dylan? Elementary school to middle school to high school, did inclusion change for you at all?
It did, pretty much. I'm sorry, pretty much, I didn't know whether to stop or not. Pretty much, as I grew up and grew taller, I'm sitting down right now, pretty much. So that's why I look short on camera. I'm 6'8" in real life. Pretty much, don't grow up to be 6'8". It's terrible. Pretty much, as I grew up in age and height, pretty much I got included more and more because people became more knowledgeable. They knew that, yeah, sneezing doesn't cause disabilities to exist. I mean, why would it? Pretty much, so they were like, "Hey, Dylan, could you help me with XYZ?" Even though I wasn't like good at English like everyone else. In fact, I'm still terrible with English. Some words confuse me and pretty much like what word is that? Not paradox. Confucianism. Pretty much Confucianism. Pretty much the religion. It has many definitions for some reason. Pretty much, even though I was bad at English, I was included because I was good at math and science sometimes. And I would always spend time taking notes. People would ask me for notes. So I was included because of that.
Good. So basically, just so I'm getting this right, so you know, especially when you were particularly good at something, you felt like there's maybe some more inclusive opportunities, right? So you're really good at taking notes, and people wanted to, right, like get your copies of notes, things like that.
Yeah, pretty much. It was an asset because pretty much meanwhile, while everyone was talking about silly bands and pretty much just making fun of each other, I was taking notes. I was putting my head to the desk.
I haven't thought of silly bands in a long time.
Yeah, since 2008. It was crazy. The year before that was Bakugans.
All right, great. All right, Jonathan, so think back to your transitions from, or your experience in elementary, then your transition to middle, and then your transition to high school. What did that look like as far as a sense of belonging and you know, in inclusion and that kind of model?
Just like Dylan said, it got better from elementary to middle school, middle and high school, and especially now in college. In middle school, I had a really great special education science teacher, and she taught us for all of our subjects, but on the syllabus or whatever it said science, but she was there for everything. And she said that our disability doesn't define who we are. I got introduced to I'm Determined with that teacher, and I came out of my shell. I didn't feel ashamed to have a disability. And then from that point forward, I just got better and better. The elements of self-determination grew and grew. And then that helped me become the youth leader I am today. And being in college and seeing everybody comes from different walks of life and everybody's so inclusive and everybody's accepting, it's a really great experience to see the transition from each of the grade levels.
Jonathan, was there anything particularly hard? I mean, I've heard a little bit of a theme now for folks that as they got older, the inclusive opportunities increased. Was that hard, considering you started in kind of a less inclusive model, and then all of a sudden you're becoming more included? What's difficult about that?
It wasn't necessarily hard. It was just, I would say it was a little bit difficult with making sure you told the right people about your disability, I would say. For instance, when I got my job, I made sure that I told my boss about it. But, the people who I'm associated with we call it a brotherhood instead of a fraternity at college that I'm the president of, I don't necessarily tell everybody, I just tell the director. So I would say that's the only piece that would be difficult for me, that was difficult for me.
Good. All right. We'll go Emily and then Chloe and then Annie. So Emily, elementary, middle, and high, how did it look? Was it different? Was it the same?
So middle school was really hard for me, and like I became more self-aware that I was different. And I didn't have great teachers during that period that really helped with that process. But then I got to high school and found my place. I found things to do outside of school and outside of those core subjects. I joined the journalism team, and I found I'm Determined. I really just found who I was outside of my disability, despite all of what I was going through at that time.
Yeah, I've heard a lot that middle school seems to be hard for a lot of people. I think everyone is kind of particularly in middle school, afraid of being different, at all for anything. And so, Chloe, what are your thoughts on your move from elementary to middle to high school? Was it different, good, bad?
Oh, when I got to middle school, my so-called friends didn't really talk to me anymore. And so I guess that part was hard, but I was always involved in some type of sport. So outside of school, so that helped a lot. And so my teachers would not give me the accommodation I needed, especially in sixth grade. They took away my aim, and I had to do everything by myself, basically. And so that was kind of difficult, because a kid would see people that move around a lot. It doesn't, you can't really, I mean, I did the best I could, but that was difficult. And then when I got to high school, stuff got better, but I still had to fight for accommodation and stuff. So, yeah.
I keep muting myself and then talking. Chloe, was there somebody, I hear you say like in middle school and high school, particularly you had to keep fighting for accommodations.
Yeah.
Was there someone particularly in middle and high school that was like on your side that helped fight with you?
All of my case managers and my parents, of course, they helped fight for what I needed. Yeah.
Good, great. Okay, it's good to have good case managers, right?
Yeah, always.
Annie, let's talk about elementary to middle. I know you said already that fifth grade it started getting really kind of hard, and then I'm assuming that middle school probably wasn't much better. And so talk about that middle school, high school, college. What was good, what was bad, what changed?
Yeah, so fifth grade didn't go great, and I was the only one from my elementary school going to my middle school, because I went to elementary school out of district. So I decided, since 5th grade didn't go great with, having a disability, when I went to 6th grade, I decided that I just wasn't going to have a disability. And so 6th grade, I just like refused to meet with my case manager. I refused all my accommodations. And I got into a lot of fights with my mom about it. And I think it was like 3rd quarter report cards came, and I was like failing everything. And that's when I really realized that like the supports may make me look different, but they're going to help me be successful. And so, middle school was still rough. 7th grade, I decided I had a disability again, and, used my accommodations. And that's when I kind of really found out like who my true friends were. And I was able to, find a close group of friends who didn't care about my disability or care about the fact that I like would leave the room for like whatever. So middle school, so 7th, 8th grade, were better. Definitely by the time I got to high school, that's when I was introduced to I'm Determined. And my high school case manager wasn't the best. But I, had my mom and my dad, and I also made a lot of great friends through I'm Determined who were older than me. So, they had gone through the high school and college transition already. So I would ask them a lot of questions, which was helpful. And I think that transition from high school to college really fell on me, and like asking for help and asking for the accommodations. Because my mom wasn't with me. I didn't have like a case manager who was like checking up on me or was talking to my teachers. That was like my job. So that was a big adjustment, going to college and having to ask for accommodations and, advocate a lot more than, because like in high school, I would talk to my teachers, but they already knew because they get paperwork like through the case manager and everything. Whereas in college, that's like, I have to be my case manager. I have to go and give professors papers and documentation and everything. So that was a big adjustment.
I think that's a great point because for all the students listening, right? I mean, in high school, you can certainly be pushed to be determined and to be advocate, but ultimately, you've got this like safety net there, right? And so you might not always feel super motivated to do things that are hard, but the problem is if you don't practice and become skilled at it, right? When you leave high school, the safety net's gone. And it doesn't mean, yeah, college, it's gone, but it's also gone if you go straight to a job, right? If you don't know how to talk about what you need, very rarely when you try something for the first time, do you do an awesome job at it, right? And it doesn't have to do anything to do with advocacy, with anything. Think about the first time you tried to ride a bike, right? Did you just start riding or did you fall over? Most of us fell over, right? And so it's important to practice now while you have some support, because the reality is when you get out of high school, there's not always going to be someone there that knows you and knows all these things. All right, so I'm gonna have Dylan go first on this one, and I'll give everyone else a chance to think about it. I want you to think about the first time you felt a sense of belonging, and what was that experience? Maybe it was you're a part of a team, maybe it was just you had a good friend or two. I know for Dylan, I want him to talk a little bit about his experience with the Boy Scouts, but be thinking about that as Dylan speaks. Go ahead, Dylan.
So, pretty much as John mentioned, pretty much I was part of the Boy Scouts. I'm going to assume that there are a few, maybe a bunch of Boy Scouts in the classroom right now, and maybe that one scout that won't admit it, but actually is just like silent, airing, and he's cool. Probably acting like, yeah, I'm part of the Boy Scouts. I'm not going to say. Pretty much, I wasn't just part of the Boy Scouts, I was also part of the Cub Scouts back when the books looked adorable. Mine looks like Hello Kitty. Yeah, mine looks like Hello Kitty. That's the Tiger Cub Badge handbook. Literally, this looks like Tony the Tiger for Frosted Flakes. The new ones look like they were made by the US Marines. Regardless of this, pretty much I was included because my dad wasn't part of the Boy Scouts. He had to do everything the hard way. He had to start from scratch, everything from scratch, learning new things because he had dropped college. Regardless of this, he pretty much when I was first presented to Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, pretty much the group looked at me and went, okay, yeah, he's here. Let's just go along with it. Because no one really cares where you're from, who you are. They'll know your name, surely. You're part of the troop. But no one really cares what you have. That's the point of Boy Scouts. You're there not because of you're disabled, you can't really speak, or because you're missing a limb. You're there because you want to set the stuff on fire. That's why you really join Boy Scouts. Every single camp out was literally summarized as set things on fire or get thing to set thing on fire. Because, again, my dad wasn't a Boy Scout. If the troop didn't start a fire within 20 minutes, you get a blowtorch. Pretty much start the fire. Because he did not really care. But that also made me feel included. Not because of starting fires, but because it was everything that someone could relate. Everyone helped each other out. Boy Scouts, even though we were possibly in different badges, doing different stuff, we would schedule things like, hey, pretty much I need help with XYZ. Can you help me with that on whatever day? Pretty much, Boy Scouts were insane. In general, all Boy Scouts are insane because setting stuff on fire is fun. And also seeing stuff explode. Story for another day. Pretty much, we were insane, but that does not mean that we did not help each other out. We were in the same boat as everyone else.
And so also just a point to make too. So not only was Dylan in Boy Scouts, but Dylan is also an Eagle Scout. So he's seen, he's got the highest.
Pretty much. My Eagle Scout badge could basically be summarized as rush because I decided to become an Eagle Scout at 17. That's a bad idea because you have 1 year to do your project. Pretty much, when you hit 18 on the day of your birthday, you're no longer a Boy Scout. I started in December. I had 7 months to do this. It was a rush job, but I did do it, and it did end up pretty well.
Awesome. So let's go to Jonathan. Again, thinking back to the first time you felt a sense of belonging and how that kind of impacted you.
I would say the really first time I felt a sense of belonging was the Undetermined Move Summit. That was when I was in a room of like-minded youth who had the same disability, but we weren't letting it define us. So we were determined to collect all of the skills that we could to improve and be better. And so then when I became a youth leader, I had great role models like Emily and Annie who were older to look from and to build off of. So I would say I'm Determined was really my biggest sense of community and belonging.
Can you think of how you felt when you first experienced that kind of sense of belonging?
At first you kind of get overwhelmed with all that there is because there's so much being thrown at you. But eventually you get a sense of like family and, like I said, community. And so I really I call Emily my sister because I feel like she is. That's that's the close knit community that I feel that I'm determined really is.
One thing I thought I through some of the research I've done and definitely through a lot of the youth leaders' stories, right? A lot of times before they meet other people with similar disabilities, they feel like, especially folks with invisible disabilities, feel like they're the only one in the world who struggles with reading, or they're the only one in the world who has dyslexia. And so it can feel pretty lonely. But the reality is there's people all around, right? With similar struggles and similar strengths, right? And so no one's going to know that about you though until you talk about it. So Emily, how about for you? What was your first kind of true feeling of a sense of belonging, and what was it like?
So I grew up in a very, very small town, and everybody knew me and knew my story. And sometimes that was very annoying. So I would have to say, going to I'm Determined, where no one knew me, but they accepted me anyhow. They accepted me despite my troubles, despite my disability, and wanted me to come and sit at the table with them, and wanted me to be a part of the group. Was the first time that I really felt like they wanted me to be there, because at home, yes, people would invite me to things, but I felt like it was because, oh, that's Emily. That's the girl that we've always known.
Chloe.
This is a hard question. Because I felt like I've always had sense of some type of belonging, whether it's at camp or at therapy or at undetermined or school. So I don't really know.
I think that's good though. I mean, I think everyone's story is different, right? And the fact that you felt, I also think, I don't think I know, Chloe is someone, as I mentioned in the chat, right? Chloe's gone downhill skiing, she's gone rock climbing. Chloe throws herself into situations, without thinking twice about it. And so when you tend to have a personality like that, you probably attract people who, and you get to have that sense of belonging, right? Because Chloe's not afraid to do anything.
It's because of my back story. It's because of how I was born. And I just gotta live life to the fullest, no matter what.
I like that. Annie, how about you? Talk about, sense of belonging, the first time you felt it, and then also talk about, so I know you have a little, particular, like you started at your local community college and then transitioned to JMU, a 4-year college. You had to kind of recreate that sense of belonging. And what was that like?
Yeah, so I think I always played soccer growing up, and my siblings played soccer, and so, we did travel soccer for years growing up. So I always, felt like part of a team, and especially like, scoring goals and stuff. Um, so I had that sense of belonging, but I always felt like I was different. There were multiple times where I would like run the wrong way. Um, you know, when the goals switch at halftime just really threw me off. So there were things that like made me know that I was different. And so similar to everyone else, I'm Determined really showed me that there are a lot of people out there that are similar to me, um, and really, you know, had provided me with like mentors, um, just like Jonathan kind of looked up to Emily, and I had mentors through I'm Determined that I kind of looked up to. And so that was really helpful. And especially with my transition from high school to community college, I really didn't want to go to community college. And I have always wanted to go to JMU. And so I was really crushed when I didn't get in. Um, so, logic step, go to community college first. That's what I did. And it was hard at community college finding like a group to kind of fit in with, because community college, I went to like a satellite campus, so the size was smaller than my high school. But I started working, found like a group of friends from my job. And then when I finally did transfer to JMU, I really did struggle again finding like a group and other, kids to hang out with and do things with. And I also struggled academically because it was very challenging. So luckily I did have a lot of adult support at JMU through John and some of the other TTAC people. And then I also joined a sorority, which gave me another opportunity to, find friends and find a home. So it was nerve-wracking going through recruitment and like putting myself out there to meet new friends and make new friends. But it definitely made my experience at JMU so much better.
I think that's a great point, right? I think the one thing we need to remember is that all this stuff we're talking about, if it was easy, everyone would do it all the time, right? But these are hard skills, and that's why it's so important to practice while you're in middle school, in high school, in elementary school, because you've got the support network there to help you, right? And that, it's hard for adults too. This isn't like, easy stuff. And so I don't want you to think as you're sitting there in a classroom, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, no one really wants to do it. It's about need, right? It's about, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to take these steps to get there. And that's just part of it. So as you guys are kind of looking back, some of you have a little bit longer windows of reflection, but all of you, have been involved in I'm Determined for quite some time, are done with high school, or either in college, or some of you are done with college. So I want you to think back, and was there one person, we talked about relatedness earlier, and we said, oh, there only needs to be one person to make a difference, and to kind of be in your corner and give you that sense of belonging, or give you that push when you don't want to do something. So as you kind of, think back, was there one person that that you can think of, and specifically, how old were you, when you first met them, or when that relationship began? That's kind of a deep question. So if you know the answer, give me a thumbs up and I'll call on you first to give everyone else some processing time. Chloe's ready to rock. All right, Chloe, go ahead.
we were about 8 years old when we met. And my friend makes is my best friend in the world. And always push me to be the best me. And it's incredible that we're still playing the bring back in elementary school. And that was what, 17 years?
So Chloe had a best friend for now almost 17 years. Awesome, Chloe. I saw Dylan with a thumbs up. What do you got, Dylan?
So pretty much, as I look back on the years, even though I'm 20, so that's not a lot of years. Pretty much, I look back to Cub Scouts again, and pretty much the one person that was really pushing me, especially, was my Cub Scout master, pretty much Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore was nicest guy I ever met. He pretty much pushed every single scout in our group. Pretty much, I think it was Cub Scout Troop 966. Oh, what a great number. If only the 9 was a 6. No, I'm kidding, bad joke. Pretty much, he pushed all of us. He did not care what disability we have. He did not care about the circumstances. He would try to make every single meeting not without failure. His son was also in the troop, Bradley Moore, but pretty much, no matter the circumstances, he looked at us as if we were his kids. That was how dedicated he was to the cause. Pretty much, he saw us through till we got to Boy Scout rank. Pretty much, when we all got to Boy Scout, that he actually cried. And that's at the end of the story. This was how dedicated he was. He was so dedicated, he wanted us to become Eagle Scouts. 70% of the scouts that were in the troop, which I think were 15, 13 of them are Eagle Scouts, including yours truly. So pretty much he did succeed in this. He pushed us to the limit. He got to us.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. All right, we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to still try to get to all three of you. So Jonathan, what do you got?
John, I'm gonna have to say about 5 years ago when I first became a youth leader, my first undetermined session with Emily, I knew she was gonna be that person for me to push me to do better, and she always does. So I appreciate you for that, Emily.
Oh, thanks.
All right, Emily, how about you?
I would have to say Kendall, who is a determinator with the I'm Determined project, who now, even though I'm not an I'm Determined youth leader, keeps in contact and makes sure I'm doing great things. And that was 10 years ago. I don't know. I'm showing my age now. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, 1 million years ago when the fossils were just fossilizing.
All right, Annie, how about you?
I definitely have to say John. I was a little high schooler just wanting to be a cheerleader when I met John. And he really pushed me to not only go to JMU, but graduate and now be a teacher. So thanks.
Oh,
John.
very nice. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, remember, it just takes one person, right? And you can be one of those people for somebody else, right? Doesn't mean you need to be the only one, just looking. You can be that person too. So when we come back together on May 4th, we're going to be talking about problem solving. We've got again, a great panel lined up and a great discussion. Thanks for participating today, and hopefully you can enjoy some of this spring weather. I'll turn it back over to Carla.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for joining, students and teachers. And we look forward to you coming back on May the 4th for our next little onion peel, as we continue to build on these skills. You guys keep practicing, and we appreciate you being here this afternoon. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, guys.
All right, we'll see you in May.